Hey everybody, welcome to week 4 of our spring life group session. This past Sunday, we continued our series entitled Jonah, where we're talking about the life and ministry of this prophet named Jonah. And we've been examining his story verse by verse. A couple of weeks ago, we began by examining how Jonah had fled from the presence of the Lord. As he begins to run from God and to pursue his own passions in life, he was led to a place in which he jumped on board a ship, and he was headed to a place called Tarshish as opposed to going to Nineveh. And instead of going in the right direction, he was headed in the wrong direction. And so God brought about a storm, which caused the sailors of the ship to get very, very uneasy and upset about the things that were taking place. As a result, so they woke Jonah up, asked him if who he served. He told them that he was a Hebrew and that he served the God of all creation. And then they tossed Jonah overboard. And we finished chapter 1 by discovering the fact that Jonah had been swallowed up by a gigantic fish. But in Jonah chapter 2, Jonah is in the belly of this fish for 3 days and 3 nights, and he begins to pray to the Lord. And as he does so, he speaks of this desire to once again be in the presence of the Lord. He had been fleeing from the presence of the Lord, but now he's starting to desire to once again come back into the presence of the Lord. And he speaks about the desire to come into the temple of God and to be close to God. And he finishes this prayer in a powerful way. In Jonah chapter 2, and in verse 9, we read these words. Jonah says, "But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord." And immediately saying those words, salvation belongs to the Lord, Jonah was spit out of that fish out upon dry land. And he was able to continue on that mission. Well, you know what? As you and I stop and we think about this story, it reminds us of the many times in our life in which we have run from God, but then can turn back to Him. And when we ask God to forgive us, how God can suddenly change our circumstances and our situations in life in a dramatic way. And so this week within your life groups, you're going to be talking about this story and answering questions about this particular chapter. And I want to encourage you to dig deep into these questions and allow God to speak into your life. I also want to remind you as a group to be talking about your service project. Within each session of our life groups ministries, we want to have a week in which we go and serve together. And if you have not had an opportunity to talk about that as a group, I want to encourage you to do that this week. Begin planning what that activity might look like so that you can go and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Well, with those things in mind, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on Sunday.